Hello, welcome to Wit's End. My name is Mike Walsh and I'm here to spoil your day. In this last segment, I'm going to talk about the despised masses, the ordinary man and woman in the street, folks like you and me, us, we the people. The elites think we're stupid, too thick to be allowed to vote, too ignorant to have a voice. We've been called all sorts of insulting names: the lumpen proletariat, the underclass, the great unwashed, the bewildered herd, and most recently, the basket of deplorables. Lumpen proletariat is the one I find most objectionable. It suggests weight and idleness, a stinking lump of human suet, swilling beer in a filthy room, mindlessly watching a flickering TV screen. Are we really so stupid, so lumpen, so disgusting? We the people aren't much liked by the cultural elite. Intellectuals look down on us with withering contempt. Politicians lie to us and speak to us as if we were backward children. The politically correct media constantly lectures us and keeps us distracted with fatuous reality shows that turn us into compliant voyeurs, easy to manipulate. At best we're patronized, at worst demonized. These elites are convinced that the ordinary citizen is a low, vulgar, moronic subhuman with bad table manners and violent tendencies. They wish we didn't exist, but they grudgingly recognize our usefulness. We have two functions vital to the successful operation of a vibrant economy: work and shopping. Civilization needs wage slaves, and culture depends on consumers. How did this animus begin? It seems to have started in the late 19th century with the introduction of the Education Act, which meant the lower orders were taught to read and write. Popular newspapers sprang up to feed this new hunger for the written word. Cheap romantic novels began to appear, and even more alarming, people began to learn things they weren't supposed to know. Revolutionary ideas began to stir in the slums and the sweatshops. Those at the top began to worry. Every democracy faces two connected problems: how to maintain social cohesion while at the same time granting its citizens freedom. Totalitarian regimes face no such problems. They arrest, torture, and execute those who speak out in protest. Nothing terrifies the cloistered elites more than the people, the great seething majority that from time to time rises up in fury and overturns the established order. That's why our masters go to great lengths to keep us placid and quiet. That's why they hate us. That's why we're so deplorable. They hate what they fear. There are so damn many of us. When the rioting starts, the smell of shit drifts down from the mansions on the hill. In 1930, a Spanish philosopher by the name of José Ortega y Gasset published a small book called The Revolt of the Masses. This book summed up everything that was wrong with popular culture. José was pissed off with the masses. He hated the swarms of humanity crowding the cafes and the theaters, crawling like cockroaches over the beaches and the beauty spots, filling the parks and the public spaces, and polluting the overcrowded cities with their odious presence. Even worse, they were invading the sacred enclaves of the elite, pushing brazenly into places they didn't belong. Such impudence made José's blood boil. He saw this as a revolt. He wasn't alone. In England, France, Germany, and the United States, the eggheads were up in arms. Canonized writers like George Bernard Shaw, H.G. Wells, W.B. Yeats, H.D. Lawrence, E.M. Forster, Virginia Woolf, and even the ultra-liberal pacifist Aldous Huxley advocated drastic measures, such as eugenics and mass extermination, to solve the problem. This solution was finally implemented in the gas chambers of Nazi Germany. Eggheads can be monsters too. Much of what Cassette wrote echoed an earlier German philosopher by the name of Friedrich Nietzsche. For a philosopher, Fred was unusual. He could write with verve and style in a language people could understand. He was the master of the aphorism and the punchy one-liner. All the above writers were huge Nietzsche fans. When he said, "Where the rabble drink, all the fountains are poisoned," they believed him. When he said, "Too many are born and they hang on the branches much too long," they believed him. When he prayed for a storm to shake all this rottenness and worm-eatenness from the tree, they got down on their knees and prayed for the same thing. Eventually, they got what they prayed for: 2 world wars that significantly reduced the cockroach population. The specter that haunted their nightmares was hyperdemocracy, the tyranny of the masses, where the individual would cease to exist. Democracy was anti-individualism. There would be no place for the lone voice of the literary genius. Art would be vulgarized and degenerate. Politics would cater to the mob. High culture would disappear to be replaced with mindless feel-good drivel. Everything would flatten out in a multicultural soup that worshipped the average and despised the exceptional. This nightmare terrified the cultural elites. They must have woken up screaming. After the Second World War, the menace of communism loomed large. The lumpen proletariat became more frightening and despicable than ever. The commie cockroaches had gobbled up more than half of Europe and were hungry for more. And terrifyingly, they had the atomic bomb. These semi-literate subhumans had the power to destroy life on Earth. They were after nothing less than world domination. The terrified elites reached for the toilet paper. Attitudes in the West began to change. Loathing for the basket of deplorables was no longer fashionable, at least on the surface. The bewildered herd needed love and care to keep them mute and docile. The 1950s saw an explosion of consumerism. Shiny new home appliances flooded the market. Huge Baroque automobiles armored with gleaming chrome could be bought on the installment plan. Suburbs sprang up with neat little houses the working man could afford with a 30-year mortgage. The economy was booming. Defense plants were churning out weapons of mass destructions. Families sat contentedly in the evenings eating TV dinners in front of their flickering black and white 12-inch television screens, watching I Love Lucy. Everything was wonderful, except it wasn't. The political right was in the ascendant, busy dismantling the gains the labor movement had made during the reforming Roosevelt era. Government workers had to sign loyalty oaths. The mere suggestion of communist sympathies meant unemployment. The Hollywood 10, who refused to rat on their friends, lost their careers and were led away in handcuffs to prison. Senator Joe McCarthy was tearing apart innocent people who testified before his subcommittee. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed for passing atomic secrets to the Russians. A toxic atmosphere of paranoia and distrust hung over that time like a poison cloud, and that cloud has never gone away. Things haven't changed much since the long ago 1950s. We in the West are still breathing in the same toxic atmosphere of paranoia, hostility, and distrust. Communism may have collapsed along with the Berlin Wall, but Marxist ideas are still alive and well, bubbling subversively in the ranks of the oppressed minorities. The ideology is the same, but the aims are different. Instead of a class struggle, it's a race, gender, identity struggle. Just as in the 1950s, the poison cloud of paranoia, hostility, and distrust is stifling public debate. People are afraid to speak out. The category of deplorables has been whittled down to beer-swilling white men wearing baseball caps and smoking politically incorrect cigarettes. These ignorant, dim-witted honkies hold racist, misogynistic, homophobic, and xenophobic views. Even if they've never expressed such views, they certainly think them. White has become the new black. The tables have turned. The old prejudices have just switched colors. Blacks fought for equality, so did women, so did homosexuals. But at the point of victory, something changed. Equality wasn't enough. It was decided that some were more equal than others. Since people of color, women, homosexuals, and transsexuals were the oppressed, the moral high ground was theirs. And that made them more equal than the rest of us. This bad idea of superiority has been a source of much mischief as well as amusement. I can't help laughing every time I see white politicians humble themselves and offer groveling apologies for the slave trade, an evil they had nothing to do with. I shake my head in despair when cowardly universities cancel the lectures of intimidating white men because some cowering co-ed might feel unsafe. I smile warmly every time a homosexual couple gets hitched, convinced that with every such marriage, a gay angel gets their wings. I seethe with indignation when a nutless athlete is allowed to enter a woman's sporting event. The world has gone mad. We've arrived at wit's end. Reason itself is under threat. The whole idea of rationality as a moral and political justification has fallen into disrepute. The very thing that makes us human is being tossed overboard to make way for the lunacy of raw emotion. Reason, the minorities cry, is not interested in discovering the truth, but in protecting the power and privilege of the one who reasons. Before we swallow this glib crap, we should remember Goya's chilling remark: "The sleep of reason breeds monsters." None of this would have been possible without the foolish connivance of the toxic white male. The white man has only himself to blame for his fall from grace. His bleeding heart, his empathy for the downtrodden, his race guilt over long dead horrors has caused him to act against his own best interest, to side with the sinister forces of political correctness. His uneasy conscience has danced him into the dungeon of the deplorables, where he'll remain for some time. Folly has its price. I have a dream that I'll wake up one morning transformed into a black homosexual Muslim with transgender tendencies, that I'll be cleansed of my horrid whiteness and be welcomed with open arms into the ranks of the oppressed minorities that have become so aggressively oppressive. To date, no miracle has taken place. Alas, I'm doomed. I'm a deplorable, don't you know? My mind is stunted, it will not grow. I watch TV all day long, and I sing the Butthead and the Beaver song. I'm nasty, stupid, and oh so pale. I should be run out of town on a splintery rail. There's no redemption for the likes of me. String me to the branch of a sour apple tree. This is my last talk in the present series. I'll be back as soon as possible to spoil some more of your days, providing death or dementia doesn't intervene. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and click on the link to my website in the description below. Until the next time, stay frosty, stay skeptical, and never trust a do-gooder who drives a Mercedes-Benz.